That in itself is a hugely empowering notion. So much happens to us in life that we can't control. And this is one of those things that we can 100% control to our advantage, in fact. And most people don't do it.
Welcome to the Middle-Aged and Miserable podcast.
Yes, and please subscribe so you never miss another episode. And if you like the content, please leave us a lovely review because this engagement really helps us.
Yes, it does. All right, Pat.
All right, Chris.
So if anyone has ever tried to change their life and failed, then this is going to be the episode for them. Because success success isn't about what happens to you. Because two people can face the same setback in life. One stays stuck and the other accelerates.
Right.
So it's not about what happens to you. The difference is in the mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And specifically one key thing that we can control in our minds.
But as I've said this a lot, most people don't control this one key thing, Chris.
No, until now, though, Pat. Because in this episode, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how to upgrade your mindset so you can turn setbacks and failures into fuel to move you forward and get those changes that you desire, whether they're personal or whether they're professional.
All right.
So let's get into it.
Let's do an example so we can help clarify what we're talking about.
All right. So here's an example. So two people work at the same company and they both get laid off.
Right.
No explanation.
Okay.
I'll be person one.
And I will be person two.
All right. So they both get laid off. I'm devastated.
Right.
You know, maybe this means this isn't the right profession for me. Maybe I'm not good enough to work in this area.
Yeah. But I'm as the other person. I see it from a different point of view. Right. I see that this was something that was always going to happen at some point in our career. You know, it does happen. Maybe it's just time to move on. And you know, there's plenty of other companies out there. You know.
Okay, well, that's how you thought about it. That's how I thought about it. My actions are I'm going to sit around on the couch for a few months, and I'm going to end up probably getting a lower paid job in a different job discipline later on.
Good job. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to get out, and I'm going to expand my network and meet other people. I'm going to find opportunities. I'm going to go for interviews as many times as I possibly can. I'm just going to put myself out there. And eventually, I will probably land a better job than I was in before.
Okay, so you clearly did better out of that situation than me.
Right.
But the point is that in that scenario, we both experienced exactly the same event.
Right.
But we gave different meanings to that event.
Yes.
And those meanings drove different thoughts and different actions following the event. And then that basically took our lives into different directions. Yeah. And this is what we're going to be talking about today, the meaning we give events and just the importance of it. Because, it's such an important thing because it drives our thoughts and actions.
Yeah. It's funny because often we don't know why these events occur, you know, what the circumstances were behind the event that caused it to happen in the first place. But despite us the fact that we've given meaning to these events and not knowing why it happened, like the layoff example, right? So maybe that was circumstances completely out of our control. Maybe it was budget. Maybe it was other corporate reasons why we get laid off. You know. So, but it's funny because without knowing the reason, we decided ourselves in that fictitious example what it meant to us.
Yeah,
and completely made that up.
Yeah. You decide. You basically decide, don't you? And just that word, using that word "decide," it illustrates that meanings are a choice.
Yeah, totally.
And like you said, sometimes they're based off no facts because there's an absence of facts. Yeah. But the choices are significant because these choices, these meanings, they form our mindset. They reinforce our beliefs of what we think we're capable of.
Right, and that's your mindset is what drives your actions, and those actions effectively just govern where our life goes completely. Which, when you think about it, that in itself is a hugely empowering notion. So much happens to us in life that we can't control, and this is one of those things that we can 100% control to our advantage, in fact, and most people don't do it.
Right.
no matter what happens in our lives, it's you and only you that can decide what that event means. You get to choose.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's only one of three things that that we have 100% control of.
Right.
We get to choose what we focus on. We get to choose what events mean, and we get to choose what we do, our actions.
Right.
And they're the only three things we can 100% control.
Yeah.
This meaning side of it is important to recognize, because life is going to throw challenging events and hard times at you.
Really? Does it? I've never noticed that.
And it cannot be controlled. You could endure professional setbacks like we talked about.
Yeah.
Money troubles or health problems, or you could even lose a loved one. And none of these events are in your control.
Right.
But you can control how you choose to react to them. And so, you get to choose a meaning that empowers your mindset and encourages you to take action towards an outcome you desire, or you get to choose a meaning that disempowers your mindset and keeps you stuck.
Yeah. I've found I do this a lot, actually, whether it's a large event that occurs, and it's like particularly in setbacks or in perceived failures, or when something's not working out the way I want it to work out. I'll often pause and I'll stop and I'll think, how can this help me? What is this event? How is it helping me move forward? Like, what are the lessons I can learn from this event that has just happened? And how can I make better decisions, having learned that lesson, that's going to take me further on, make my life better? Because I say this a lot. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and I just happen to try and choose empowering reasons for those events instead of like just moping around, sulking, and woe is me, and feeling sorry for myself, because it makes me feel better and it helps me learn.
Well, it makes you move forward, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it's funny because we say it's a choice, but that can make it sound like it's like there's this choice or this choice. Which one do you want?
It's A or B.
But it's not that, is it? I mean, it's kind of all made up, isn't it? It's bonkers, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Just because an event happens to you, it doesn't mean one thing or another. It's like you literally get to invent in your head what it means.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I told you, didn't I, at work, a buddy of mine, he had a terrible thing happen to him out of the blue last year in the summer. He was literally just walking from his car into a pharmacy. And
oh, right.
a car was parking, and he was wearing shorts, just strolling along the sidewalk, the path.
The footpath, yeah.
And a car went to park forward and the person slammed on the accelerator by mistake instead of the brake and crushed him against the wall.
Right.
Completely crushed his leg. He said he went from just walking along in shorts to being on his back, looking at his leg and just seeing bones sticking out and blood everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And he felt it closing in on him. He was losing so much blood, he thought he was going to die.
Wow.
And I saw him like 6 months later, and he's limping. And I was like, I couldn't believe his attitude over it. He was so positive over it.
Wow.
He was like, I'm struggling to get back. And he even mentioned to me, he said, I just watched you walk down the stairs there. And I'm thinking like, wow, look at him glide down those stairs, like little things.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's just so grateful. He said, I could have died on that sidewalk. Right. He said, I don't look back. I don't feel animosity to the person that did this to me. He said, I can't believe I'm alive. Yeah. And he's got a completely different perspective on it that I can imagine a lot of people would feel, why did this happen to me? Why me? Why have I got a limp?
But he's just upbeat about it and learning.
Yeah, he's chosen a meaning that empowers him clearly.
Right. But he's not bitter and twisted about it in any way. That's amazing.
Really inspirational.
Yeah.
Probably not easy though.
No, that's true. I mean, and that was one of those events that happened, and he chose meaning at the time that happened. But there's a lot of things that happened to us in the past.
Yeah,
and we've attached meaning to them in the past. So how do you go and change that? Or what do you do when things have already happened? It's in the past, and you've lived with the meaning that you've attached to that from the past, and you can look at them from a completely different perspective that way. Once you realize that you can change it, and you've chosen and you've decided that that's the meaning that you've attached to that event, it will influence what actions you will take moving forward. Because you get to what we call in NLP speak, we get to reframe that event to a different meaning completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You chose that meaning in the past. You get to choose a different meaning in the past.
Right.
And totally. That reframing is an NLP reference.
Right.
And NLP is the coaching we provide, to help people change their minds, programming and make big changes in their lives.
Yeah, I'm just gonna plug a minute here. So if anybody wants to learn a little bit more, I want to encourage them to drop us an email at coaching@patandchris.com, and we'll put that up on the screen hopefully.
Yeah, so like you're talking about reframing,
right?
You could have like a tough childhood, for example, and you could have assigned a meaning that life will always be a struggle for you because your upbringing was worse than others,
right?
Or you could choose to reframe your tough childhood. You could choose to decide that it made you who you are, and it gave you the unique skills, the unique motivation and attributes that will allow you to succeed where others might not be able to.
Yeah, there's an incredible book that you and I have both read by a guy called Viktor Frankl, and it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And I think it's quite appropriate to bring that up here in this particular podcast and this subject, because he's a psychiatrist that was captured during the Second World War, and he was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, and his entire family was murdered. He was tortured. He endured unthinkable suffering during his incarceration in the Nazi concentration camp. But he got through that. It was a remarkable book. He got through that by all that suffering that he went through. He attached a meaning to that there's a reason this is happening to me, and it's to help others, and he's got a deeper purpose, and it got him through the event itself and empowered him to write the book basically and change people's minds on that.
Yeah. It's almost like he had it had two benefits, didn't it? He gave that horrible time and the meaning that he could use it to help others,
right?
But it also gave him meaning while he was going through
it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of shaped his legacy.
Yeah, that's incredible book.
Yeah. So reframing events, specifically from your past, is about looking for the benefit to you, no matter how tough the event was.
Right.
And it's about asking yourself, what's the best thing about this terrible situation? It is another thing as well. Like we said earlier, meaning's a choice.
Right.
You can change how you think about it in your mind by just simply asking yourself a question like, why did I choose to believe that was the meaning of the event? Just making that small change in your mind, that small word change, or maybe, you've got some other disempowering belief rattling around your head. When did I choose that was the case? When did I choose I couldn't do that?
Right. You're talking about thinking back, aren't you, on those events?
Yeah, I'm talking about just using different words when you talk to yourself.
Right.
Like instead of saying that happened and it meant that, why did I choose that was the meaning?
You decided it meant that.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's almost like if you use the word choose, it can kind of free it up in your mind.
Yeah.
It's not this happens and this happened and it means this. It's more this happened and I made a choice to believe this, despite there being better options.
Yeah. It's about being a little bit retrospective, isn't it? About the things that have happened to you in the past. Like what events have you encountered in your past? And what did you decide they meant? I've got an example I'll come to in a sec. So it's a case of thinking back through those key moments that have occurred in your past, and asking yourself if you made a choice that provided you a meaning that was empowering, or did you assign a meaning that was completely disempowering? And the example I've got was this, and I can only think about this now that I realize what it did to me. Was I got bullied and beat up as a kid, and I think I was a young teenager. I was about 13 or something like that, and I remember that event, and I carried that shame and that anger with me for literally decades, through into at least my 30s, I reckon. And I I every time I thought of that event, it evoked those emotions because I had attached those meanings to that event. And then it turns out when you realize what you've done to yourself, you realize it actually didn't mean anything. Those kids won't remember that event themselves.
No.
Only I remember it. And I turned it into something that was significant to me. But it wasn't. It was nothing. And once you realize that, that's empowering.
Well, you made a change. You went from deciding that it meant something to deciding that it meant nothing.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm over it. It feels good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Should we summarize, Pat?
Yeah, okay.
All right. So determining what life events mean is 100% our choice, right?
Right.
We get to choose an empowering meaning or we get to choose a disempowering meaning. You know, you can make up something if you want that benefits you.
That's true. Because the meaning that we've said that the meaning that you assign to it will dictate your actions and your results in life moving forward. And you get to change that meaning.
Yeah. So just ask yourself some questions about your past.
Right.
And think to yourself, like, what meanings have I assigned and how can I reframe them?
Yeah. Because you want to be assigning empowering meanings to these events. But it's not about blindly being positive in the face of like bad luck and adversity. It's about finding the benefit to you and deciding to be empowered despite those events. As well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's up to you to look for the gift in the struggle or find the opportunity in the challenge you're facing, and or just sort of search out the possibility in the hardship you're going through.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. Also, check out our social media content for more ways to avoid being middle-aged and miserable.